Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 761. Fight to the last breath. Miao Wuji's expression was calm, and his gaze was like lightning, sparkling brightly in the darkness of the night. Venerable Mei, are you truly ignorant of the reason behind this? The reason we're targeting Dongfang Wen Xian was simply to lure you out. Since you came out on your own, she will naturally be fine. You don't need to stand there and speak so sarcastically. Do you think that the three of us would become infuriated by your words? Even if you could provoke us with your words, what can you do? Lure me out? I'm afraid it's not so simple, right? Mei Shuayan snorted coldly. Your true intention is probably to bait me into attacking you first. As long as I attack first, you will have ample reasons to disregard the ancient covenant and join hands to kill me. Am I right? Such despicable and hypocritical means truly causes one's heart to turn cold. Only, I want to ask one more thing here. How has my Tian-Fa offended you so much that it's become a thorn in your eyes? That you would go so far as to corner me? With so many schemes in the past, as well as this lineup today. The three of you were actually willing to lower your status and band together like this. Are you not going to give me the real reason? Miao Wuji raised his eyes slightly and replied in a bland voice, his face devoid of any emotions. Fine. Since you've asked, I shall go straight to the point. You are right. Tian-Fa has never faulted or offended us since the ancient times till now. The fault is Tian-Fa. Although his words were extremely strange and contradictory, Mei Shuayan understood completely. She laughed bitterly. Indeed, Tian-Fa was not in the wrong. However, the fault is Tian-Fa. Miao Wuji, can those words of yours represent the three holy lands? Tian-Fa was not in the wrong, but the fault is Tian-Fa. These words caused Mei Shuayan's heart to directly turn as cold as ice. The fault was because Tian-Fa was a force made up of Xian beasts, not humans. This much was made clear in that one sentence. Miao Wuji fell silent for a moment and continued. Venerable Mei, I respect you as the lord of the ferocious land. And since you asked for the reason yourself, I've made an exception and given you your answer. Since I didn't want you to die without knowing why. Now that you're already almost dead, why do you still need to force people unnecessarily? With regards to Mei Shuayan's sharp question, Miao Wuji did not answer, nor did he dare to answer. He knew that if he answered with a confirmation, a heaven-shocking change would appear in the world. The consequences of this, in the current situation where their future was not yet clear, was something even a saint like Miao Wuji would be unable to bear. Furthermore, he did not have the qualifications to say that he could represent all the three holy lands. The fiend Blade Saint, who was standing at the side, smiled sinisterly and shrugged his shoulders. Of course, if Venerable Mei does not dare to fight, please call off your Xian beast horde and bring them back to Tian-Fa. We will only bring Dongfang Wen Xian away today and wait for Jun Mo Xie to come forward and claim her. His deep eyes pierced through the sky and landed on Mei Shuayan's body. Relax. We still haven't stooped to the level of needing to harm an ordinary widow. She will definitely be able to continue living very well. Even if Jun Mo Xie died one day, she will still be able to continue living to a ripe old age. His words were sharp and venomous. He was not afraid that Mei Shuayan wouldn't fight, directly laying out his scheme. Fight? Why wouldn't I dare? Mei Shuayan's face became firm. Although Dongfang Wen Xian was guaranteed to be safe, she still could not allow the enemy to bring Jun Mo Xie's mother, her own mother-in-law, away. If that happened, how would Mei Shuayan still have the face to remain in the Jun family? This move by the three Holy Lands exactly touched on Mei Shuayan's fatal spot. She had to fight. No matter what. But to fight meant to die. I'll go with you. Two voices rang out. One from Mei Shuayan's mouth and the other from Dongfang Wen Xian's mouth. Unknowingly, Dongfang Wen Xian's frail body had appeared outside the house. She looked resolutely at the three saints and turned towards Mei Shuayan, her eyes brimming with satisfaction and love. Shuayan, this matter is none of your concern now. Step back first. If Mo Xie comes back, tell him that I've never been as happy as now. Truly. Mei Shuayan's heart trembled. In that instant, she'd already felt the unwavering determination in Dongfang Wen Xian's heart. In that moment, she sighed and called out sharply, "Green Hunter! Bring the madam away and protect her well." Dongfang Wen Xian would rather die herself than to let Mei Shuayan get hurt because of her. But wasn't Mei Shuayan the same? She would rather die herself than let Jun Mo Xie's mother fall into any sort of harm. Because she was her mother too now. The green-robed Green Hunter shot out in an instant and grabbed Dongfang Wen Xian. Then, she gave Mei Shuayan a deep look and ran away, quickly disappearing into the darkness. High in the sky, a huge mass of flying Xian beasts noiselessly appeared. Their piercing eyes flashed and shone through the darkness like lightning. But far away, 6 more figures rose into the air, their bodies emanating an apocalyptic aura as they watched the commotion. Mei Shuayan bit her lips harshly. Why wasn't this Tianfa forest? How she wished that she could simply wave her hand and cause the thousands of Xian beasts to flood over at the same time against the enemy. However, doing that would certainly result in heavy losses. Furthermore, even if they could force the 9 saints back, they would not be able to leave even one of them behind. In fact, they would not even be able to injure them very seriously. The consequences would be that the Jun family would be completely destroyed. Venerable Mei, you're indeed a heroine among females. However, this Miao has to avenge that sword injury you caused me. Please. Miao Wuji's eyes glowed mercilessly as his body rose into the air. With just a single sentence, he'd already justified this fight, attributing it to the fact that Mei Shuayan had stabbed him earlier. This battle had become about a personal grievance. In other words, this battle was completely unrelated to the 3 Holy Lands and had even less of a connection to Tianfa. Of course, he had conveniently ignored the fact that he'd only been stabbed because he'd tried to abduct the other person's mother-in-law. Mei Shuayan did not say anything. In fact, she disdained to engage these shameless people in further speech. If they wished to incriminate her, were there any lack of pretexts? Distorting facts were a special skill of the 3 Holy Lands. All kinds of despicable actions were normal and righteous in their own eyes. Reasoning with them at this point was completely meaningless. From the start to the end, all they wanted was to take her life. Mei Shuayan did not hesitate anymore. With a wave of her hand, a long sword appeared in her hand. Her slender physique rose further into the air without the aid of wind. She was already at a point where she could not avoid the fight. Boss! Let's go together and tear these bastards apart. Them challenging you is the same as challenging the entirety of Tianfa. Long Crane morphed into his crane form and flew over. Below him, Big Bear and Earthcracker also roared similarly and charged forward towards the saints suspended in the air. Long Crane was right. Miao Wuji might not have the qualifications to represent the 3 Holy Lands, But Mei Shuayan had the full authority to represent all of Tianfa. It was fully within reason for the Xian beasts to join the fight. Back down. Mei Shuayan cried out anxiously. Fiend Blade Saint Wu Qianhun laughed coldly and his body disappeared, leaving several afterimages the same color as the night in the sky. In the blink of an eye, a purple flash appeared in front of Long Crane. Long Crane's eyes turned red as he charged downwards madly. With a loud bang, Long Crane's body flipped several times through the air, volleying 40, 50 zhang away. The feathers on his body were messy and torn, fluttering down. The demon sword Saint Shen Qingyun dived downwards with full force, smashing towards Big Bear, Earthcracker, Monkey King, and the rest. A demonic sword light flashed at the same time as Big Bear and the other's large palms landed against his body. However, he did not move at all from the impact, and his face only reddened slightly. In contrast, red lines appeared on the three big beast kings' bodies, and bloody red fountains spurted high into the sky. Everyone, stop! Mei Shuayan raised her voice and shouted. Shen Qingyun kept his sword and stepped back, shrugging his shoulders with a bland voice. I didn't kill them. Don't worry. Killing them would be as simple as flipping a palm to me. However, this seat does not like to bully the weak. I, Shen Qingyun, disdain such things. All of you, back off immediately. If even one person remains, I will end my own life on the spot. Mei Shuayan's black hair danced wildly in the wind as she commanded. Big Bear and the rest crawled up from the ground, but they almost fell down again when they heard Mei Shuayan's command. Their bodies shook instantly as they cried out desperately, "Eldest sister! Back off! Everyone back off immediately!" Mei Shuayan's eyes shone coldly. But deep within them, one could detect a deep emotion. Big Bear and the rest all knelt down together, crying out with sorrow. Boss! We! Back off! Mei Shuayan commanded for the third time. Heavy sentiments shone in her eyes, and her voice trembled slightly. Brothers, please protect my family well. Don't let them come to any harm. After saying that, her body rose into the air like a fairy, shooting off into the distance. Long Crane flew back with blood flowing out of his beak. Everyone retreat immediately. Do not let eldest sister's good will go to waste. In the future, we will make sure to avenge the grave hatred we have today. All the other Xian beasts fell quiet, only kneeling silently on the ground as they watched the white shadow disappearing into the distance. The three saints also vanished at the same time. The 6 shadows had also disappeared without a trace without anyone noticing. Big Bear and the rest's eyes were already filled with tears. A deep frustration could be seen on their faces, one so great it reached to the heavens. This was a frustration born out of powerlessness. They could only hate that their cultivation was so weak. At such a crucial time, they couldn't be of any help at all. Instead, they'd become a burden. The 3 holy lands. From here on out, our Tianfa's ferocious land will not rest until one side is dead. Long Crane stared unblinkingly at the now completely empty sky. Fresh blood constantly flowed out of his mouth, forming a puddle below him. However, his eyes were still shining brightly. Will not rest until one side is dead. Although Big Bear and the rest did not say these words out loud, they'd already committed them to their hearts. Mei Shuayan led the way in front. Her face was completely expressionless, like a block of ice. Behind her, Miao Wuji stared coldly at her back, his eyes filled with thick killing intent. Was the ocean's worth of blood debt of 9 venerables and 600 experts finally going to be settled today? The time had finally come to force this Lord of Tian Fa into a path of death. The responsibilities that the venerables could not complete would be left to the saints to complete. That could be considered as having fulfilled the wishes of those experts who'd been sacrificed. Even if they were making an exception and breaking the rules this time. So what? The other 6 saint experts at the back also had relaxed looks on their faces. Although they felt somewhat embarrassed by their actions. But at least, of their 2 targets Jun Mo Xie and Mei Shuayan, one of them would be settled tonight. With the group's speed, they were already outside of the city in the blink of an eye. Mei Shuayan snorted coldly, raised her sword and looked at her pursuers. Come then. All of you can attack together. Miao Wuji sneered lightly, unaffected by her taunt. Why is there a need to join hands? I alone am enough. Laughing loudly, his body sped up, turning into a faint shadow as he rushed upwards into the sky. A violent wind blew from all directions, blasting towards Mei Shuayan. Mei Shuayan's body also moved, and sharp sword strokes fell like the rain. In an instant, the sky was covered with swordlight full of the gentleness of spring, summer's violence, autumn's fragrance, and winter's bone-chilling cold. For season ultimate blade. This move was taught to me by him. It's a supreme sword technique that belongs to only the 2 of us. Mei Shuayan wielded the supreme sword technique expertly, blocking the storm-like attacks of her enemy. Her heart, however, was filled with extreme peace and contentment. Even though she was in such a heart-chilling battlefield, her heart was filled with tenderness. Mei Shuayan's figure turned elusive, sometimes appearing in the south, and sometimes in the north. Just relying on this sword technique, and her strength as a 4th-level venerable, she actually managed to fight a 1st-level sword technique to a standstill. The other 8 saint experts watching from the side could not help but reveal shocked faces. The distance between realms was supposed to be impossible to bridge with just skill. That was how it had been since the ancient days. But this norm was being broken apart by Mei Shuayan today. And all that was attributed to that amazing sword technique she was using. Miao Wuji could not gain the upper hand after a long time, and his pride was greatly hurt. Roaring angrily, his body sped up, disappearing from sight, resembling a straight line as he flew upwards with incredible speed, reaching 40, 50 zhang in the air. Suddenly, he flipped upside down and he dove downwards, smashing his right palm towards Mei Shuayan. A violent wind formed before his palm, turning into a gigantic palm print the size of a millstone. The winds and thunder around them actually howled and boomed fiercely as they accompanied the ferocity of the palm strike. Knowing that it would be difficult to best Mei Shuayan by relying on pure martial skills, he was using his powerful saint-level Xian cultivation to suppress the weaker opponent. Mei Shuayan was preparing to dodge to the side, avoiding the attack before counter-attacking again. But to her dismay, she discovered that the moment this palm appeared, the space around her had been completely locked. She could not move at all. Even the air had been compacted tightly. Was this the world cage? The saint-level application of the world cage? Mei Shuayan's long hair flew wildly behind her as the wind and snow swirled. In that instant, her face was a picture of calm. A tiny jade bottle floated out from her chest, shattering noiselessly into pieces before her face. 3 golden pills hovered before her, emitting a devilish golden radiance. Mei Shuayan looked calm, but a trace of ardent passion and desperate tenderness flashed in her eyes. Without any hesitation, she opened her mouth lightly and swallowed the 3 pills. Then, She shut her eyes. Saint King Pills. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 762. Madness. The gigantic palm in the sky grew closer and closer, and a savage expression flashed in Miao Wuji's eyes. This palm attack was his most famous technique. Mountain-splitting palm. The title of mountain-splitting saint was earned because of his terrifying prowess in this technique. He was fully confident that the moment this palm smashed down, Mei Shuayan would die without a doubt. And with that, the Three Holy Lands mission would be half completed. But in that instant, an oddly tyrannical aura suddenly burst out of Mei Shuayan's body, blasting out wave after wave. A loud hong sound suddenly rang out, and Miao Wuji's spatial lock was forcefully shattered. It had been disintegrated in a completely natural manner. The violent and tyrannical aura blasted out like a raging ocean, surging out in all directions. All the trees around the two were directly flattened and blasted away, flying far away into the distance. It was as if the entire patch of forest had been shifted away in an instant. The ground was transformed into a bare patch of yellow, without a single stalk of grass remaining. The dust in the sky was like a yellow dragon, coiling and rising up the sky. Mei Shuayan's appearance had also changed greatly. Her long hair was directly standing up on its ends, each strand pointing at the sky. With a loud bang, all the ornaments and jade pins in her hair was burst apart and crumbled into powder. Her cultivation rose madly in an instant, from a 4th level venerable to the peak level of the venerable realm. Without any pause, it shot through to the 1st level saint realm in the time needed for sparks to fly off a flint. Her strength did not stop growing, continuing to rise with the speed of a rocket. 1st level saint realm primary stage. 1st level saint realm middle stage, then the peak stage. After that, it continued smoothly to the 2nd level of the saint realm before finally stopping. In less time than it took for one to blink an eye, she'd advanced from a 4th level venerable to a 2nd level saint. The power contained in the 3 Saint King pills was enormous. At this time, the lighting clouds in the sky seemed to have awakened as more clouds gathered together in a hurry. The countless bolts of lightning flickered in the clouds for a swift moment without any preparations and accumulation, striking down as if they could not wait any longer. Striking down madly. Silver snakes dancing crazily through the sky. Mei Shuayan's long hair soared behind her as she let out a long roar. Her voice was filled with grief and hatred, like a desperate phoenix howling to the 9 heavens, making her final farewell to the clear skies. An unprecedentedly sharp sword aura shot into the sky as Mei Shuayan lifted her sword. The sword stabbed upwards, morphing into a dazzling rainbow that seemed to connect to the fearsome tribulation clouds. The length of the sword grew inestimably long, and with a swift stroke, it sliced towards the 8 watching saints. One sword hacking 8 saints. At this time, Miao Wuji had already dove 40, 50 zhang down, and his millstone-sized palm was smashing down ruthlessly, aiming for Mei Shuayan's head. Mei Shuayan, who was now a 2nd level saint, actually did not dodge or move at all. Smiling faintly, she raised her head, her eyes had turned into a wicked greenish color. Even as the fierce wind bore down on her head, she did not move at all. Stretching out her left hand slowly, she caught that gigantic and seemingly immaterial palm. Then, with a forceful tug, she snorted. "Get down here for me." At this time, Chen Chong, who had been watching from the side, suddenly remembered an ancient legend about Tian Fa. After connecting the events before his eyes, He instantly understood. Without any hesitation, he shouted, "Miao Wu Ji! Retreat! That's the Saint King pill. She's going all out." Chen Chang's voice rang out like thunder, urgent and anxious. However, it was covered by the deafening thunder in the sky. The sky was filled with countless arcs of lightning, illuminating the 10 people's faces. In that moment, all their faces were pale. The clouds in the sky suddenly turned completely red, as if fire was rumbling within them and they were soaked with blood. They gave one a feeling of countless demon gods riding atop the clouds, gathering from all directions. The thunderclap became more urgent, soon unifying into one. At the same time, the Xian beasts in the Jun family courtyard were all lying flat on the ground as they looked towards the direction that Mei Shuayan had disappeared. Long Crane's body suddenly shook as he discovered the abnormal signs. The clouds in the sky had suddenly rushed towards a certain direction, and following that, silver-colored snakes could be seen arching across the sky. Lightning flashed among the clouds, and thunder rumbled in all directions. Far off in the sky, the radiance of an extremely familiar, yet foreign sword light suddenly flashed. That location was extremely far away from their position, but that familiar sword light was like a radiant rainbow that stood out glaringly in the darkness of the night. Even if they were 1,000 li apart, they would still be able to see it clearly. It was like the peak of life's poetic perfection. Long Crane's face changed drastically. That was clearly eldest sister's sword. How could he not be familiar with eldest sister's sword light? But such a powerful sword light was definitely not something that she could release. Just what was the source of that terrifying strength? Eldest sister. Saint King pill. Long Crane's body shook violently as he realized in an instant. A line of blood sprayed out of his mouth, and he fell to the ground. When he took on the full-strength strike of Fiend Blade Saint earlier, he had already sustained serious injuries. His organs had nearly been smashed apart, and the only reason he had been able to remain standing until now was because of his concern for Mei Shuayan. "Tian Fa cannot do without you, eldest sister." But in that instant, when he saw the familiar yet terrifying sword light appear in the sky, Long Crane understood everything. All his hopes were dashed into pieces, and unable to hold on any longer, he fainted. Far away, a ray of black tore through the sky with a speed akin to lightning. A series of booming sounds could be heard everywhere it passed through, along with a faint burnt smell. One could see that this speed had already reached an unimaginable extreme. But whether it was the Eagle King who was flying, or Jun Mo Xie who was riding, both of them could not help but feel impatient at the slowness of this speed. Because at this time, both of them could clearly sense an extremely ominous feeling which flooded their hearts. At this point, they could already see the outline of Tianxiang City far in the distance. All of a sudden, the sky became filled with dark clouds, flickering with dazzling silver and blue. The clouds in the distance had also turned completely red as they drifted towards a certain location as if they were being chased by the wind. The sky was dense with clouds, lightning flickered, and the booming sound of thunder was low and menacing. A heavy pressure fell down and took form around Tianxiang City. Even the originally gentle breeze had turned into violent winds. Whirlwind. Hurricane. Jun Mo Xie suddenly remembered the might of heaven-earth he had experienced back when he helped Mei Shuayan break through on the snowy mountain. The power of wind and lightning. His face changed, and his eyes sharpened like an eagle's. Who's breaking through here? It can't be Shuayan, right? As the words left his mouth, an extremely familiar, yet hopeless aura filled the sky. Jun Mo Xie's face changed, and turned as pale as a ghost's. Shuayan? How could it be her? How could this be? All of a sudden, an incredibly sharp sword light flashed into the sky, stabbing upwards and breaking into the clouds. Following that, it morphed into a gigantic lunar arc, sweeping horizontally outwards. This sword light carried the terrifying might of lightning as it sliced out. That's eldest sister's sword. But how could the might be so great? Could it be? Eagle King exclaimed with shock as he increased his speed yet again, flying forward as if he didn't want his life anymore. He did not seem to even notice the madly flashing lightning in the sky. In that moment, Eagle King only had 3 words in his mind: Saint King Pills. Eldest sister, have you gone crazy? Apart from him, there was someone that was even more anxious. Eagle King only felt his back lighten. Jun Mo Xie, who was on his back, had abruptly disappeared. Since Eagle King could recognize Mei Shuayan's sword, how could Jun Mo Xie, who gifted her that very sword, not recognize it? Mei Shuayan's sword. Why? 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 Jun Mo Xie put out his full strength and started up the Hongjun Pagoda at the same time, using yin-yang escape and raising his speed to the very limit. In that moment, he'd even exceeded his limit. With a light so sound, he disappeared before Eagle King and disappeared far into the distance with a speed that left even the Eagle King, who was known for his speed, stunned. In the battlefield outside the city, the land was scorched and broken for as far as the eye could see. Following Mei Shuayan's "Get down for me" snort, the previously graceful and arrogant Miao Wuji, who was bullying the weak, suddenly screeched with horror as he was forcefully yanked out of the sky by a powerful force. With a fierce roar, Mei Shuayan smashed a palm right into his chest and followed it up with over 1,000 palm strikes to the same place in a manner akin to a violent storm. Miao Wuji only had time to let out a wretched cry as his body was flung backwards for an unknown distance. Only after he was smashed away did the dense sound of bones shattering ring out. Although he had heard Chen Chang's warning earlier, everything had happened too quickly. In addition, Mei Shuayan's cultivation had suddenly exceeded his by a whole level, and she even let herself get hit by his attack in exchange for this chance. So how could she let him escape safely? As lightning flashed around her, Mei Shuayan's charming face appeared extremely cold and emotionless. The long sword in her right hand morphed into a gigantic screen of light, sweeping towards the other 8 people. The 8 experts roared out at the same time, among which was a bone-chilling screech of a half-male, half-female. With a loud bang, 9 powerful energies collided together. Muffled grunts rang out, and a few saints even had blood flowing from the corners of their mouths. Mei Shuayan's body jolted violently, like a willow tree getting swayed by the violent winds. Blood flowed out of her nose and mouth, merging together into a stream. However, she did not stop. Raising her sharp sword, she directly dashed into the group of saint experts and slashed wildly. At the same time, a bolt of lightning the thickness of a finger struck down from the sky, crossing the span of tens of thousands zhang towards Mei Shuayan's head. She had forcefully consumed the Saint King pills, skipped 2 levels, and improved her strength drastically. Naturally, she would have to bear the heavenly tribulation that accompanied each breakthrough. But her speed of advancement had simply been too quick, causing the heavens themselves to be unable to react until now. Thus, the heavenly tribulation of 2 breakthroughs arrived at the same time together. The reason she'd consumed those Saint King pills was precisely caused by these people. So she determined that this heavenly tribulation would not just be borne by herself, not a single one of those bastards would escape it either. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 763. You don't deserve it. It was the first time Mei Shuayan, who had always been very cautious about the safety of the Xian continent, conceived the idea of eradicating the three holy lands. After all, I'm just a Xian beast. Why do I need to care about what happens to the continent? Even if all the humans are to die, the strange races will not dare to enter Tianfa as well. For so many years, I have put in so much effort in the peace and security of the continent. What do I get back now? We, Tianfa, have helped humans maintain their peace. But we are still constantly framed and persecuted. Humans, whom we wholeheartedly protect, are the ones who want to kill us. They are brutal. They are mad. They never show gratitude. Why do we have to endure all this? There is the saying that humans have consciences. But do they really? Mei Shuayan was driven crazy. All that was left in her was killing intent. How dare they hold Mo Xie's mother as hostage? We were comrades for 10,000 years. We fought side by side. We call people like them comrades? Ha ha ha, how ridiculous. Mei Shuayan screamed and laughed mournfully. It was an ironic laugh filled with distress, wrath, and unwillingness. You don't deserve it. She roared with anger and her eyes flashed even brighter than the lightning above. She hollered again at the 8 figures shivering before her as she charged at them. You don't deserve it. Retreat. She will definitely die. There's no point fighting her anymore. Chen Chong hurriedly blocked a blow from Mei Shuayan's sword. However, his body was shaken by it, unstopping. It appeared that Mei Shuayan was only getting stronger. Chen Chong looked at the lightning bolts dropping down from the sky in anxiety. If they were to experience a heavenly tribulation during a retreat, the consequences would be dire. Retreat? That won't be easy. You should be prepared to bear the consequences of when you decide to plot against me. With a desperate sneer, her figure flickered with a flash-like speed. The first lightning strike missed her, hitting the ground behind her with a big boom. When the dust was thrown up into the air cleared, a deep crater was revealed. With more flashes, 3 more bolts of lightning landed fanatically. Mei Shuayan's body disappeared again as if she were a ghost. When she reappeared, she was right before Wu Qianhan, brandishing her sword, ready to pierce at him. Wu Qianhan tried to direct away the momentum with his magical saber as he used all his might to hop backwards. He was still taken by surprise, despite being a saint. There was a guilty conscience when they faced Mei Shuayan. On top of that, he still had to deal with the wrath of nature. All he could do, even as a saint, was to escape with all his strength. But how could Mei Shuayan let him go? Mei Shuayan had already been the fastest even before she reached a second-rank venerable. Now she was a second-rank saint. Her speed was much more than just doubled. Her figure flickered again and appeared behind Wu Qianhan's body. She pierced through him forcefully, shattering the Xian Qi protection on his body with her sword. It pierced through his iron-like body and his heart. And finally, the shining tip of the sword emerged from the other side of body, carrying with it some bloody red, radiating the color of death. Mei Shuayan snorted and the energy stored within the sword was instantaneously released. The sword aura danced within Wu Qianhan's body. He screamed in anger and agony, but only pieces of internal organs were spat out along more blood. At this moment, 3 more bolts of lightning struck. Mei Shuayan quickly dodged, but was still hit by one on her shoulder. Immediately, the scent of burnt flesh hit the air. An opening was left on her tender shoulder. However, she didn't even flinch as she continued advancing. She didn't even turn back to see what happened to Wu Qianhun. The enormous amount of electricity passed through the saber and was delivered to Wu Qianhun's body. With a bright flash, Wu Qianhun, who was still coughing organ pieces, immediately turned into mere burning charcoal. The figure suddenly crumbled. All that was left was charcoal scattered on the ground and the scent of burnt flesh. His soul was annihilated. A saint died without saying any words in such a disgraceful manner. No matter how eminent he was when alive, all he left behind was the effect of making the ground where he vanished stink. The remaining saints fled in different directions. Mei Shuayan was obviously driven crazy. They knew that by now, she would die even without them doing anything. Even if she did not die from the heavenly tribulation, the pill alone would be enough to end her life. They were experienced saints. They were able to deduce from the unusual increase in speed that Mei Shuayan had used a secret technique that boosted her performance with the price of hurting her own body. Judging from the extent of the boost, it could only be paid with her life. The only thing they didn't expect was that the legend about this technique was in fact true. Mei Shuayan's powers were more than 10 times stronger. Obviously, she was now trying to make them die with her. But how would they be willing? So the saints used their top speed to escape. At this moment, they no longer cared about manners and temperament. All that mattered was surviving. 7 bolts of lightning with the thickness of an infant's fist came down. They no longer hit the floor when Mei Shuayan dodged them. Instead, they hovered above her head to wait for the best chance to strike. However, Mei Shuayan was now before the quickly escaping demon sword saint. She didn't hesitate to land the blow. The blow was like lightning. A blow that could kill any expert living today. The bolts hovering in the sky also struck at the same moment. How could Shen Qingyun resist the combined power of the heavens and Mei Shuayan when she was so desperate? Shen Qingyun smiled helplessly. He knew there was no way out. So instead, he pierced Mei Shuayan's chest with his sword. All he wanted was to kill her at the same time. Mei Shuayan didn't dodge at all. Her fate had already been sealed, so it no longer made a difference to her. Both swords formed a pair of parallel lines, pointed at each other's heart. Their faces showed only helplessness and fanaticism. The other saints were long gone. There was no way for her to catch up with them anymore. Shen Qingyun would be the last saint to be slaughtered by her. So it made no difference. After all, dying from a pierce through the heart would be less painful than the death from the effects of the pills or the heavenly tribulation. There was a poignant smile on her face as she murmured, Mo Xie. The only pity was that she could not see him one last time. Farewell, the love of my life. Take care of yourself. Don't make me worried. And, don't miss me. Forget me. She suddenly recalled their first encounter in the Tian Fa forest, when she was still a small beast. She could also picture how they would cuddle together under the snow layers when they were pursued. So nostalgic. A trace of shyness could be seen on her face. At the same moment, there was a roar full of heartbreak and cruelty, booming down from the sky. Shuayan. Mei Shuayan's eyes suddenly flickered with surprise. At the final moment, she suddenly felt a very strong urge to survive. She twisted her body, preventing the sword from piercing through her heart. Even if I die, I want to see him. Because this will be the last time. I want to leave with love in my heart. The sword pierced through her body from below her chest. At the same time, Mei Shuiyan's sword also went through Shen Qingyun's body. And immediately afterwards, both of their Xian Qi turned into exploding sword aura. Thunder boomed right above their heads. The two of them flew backwards at the same time, both lifelessly. Both swords were pulled out, and blood sprayed out from the wounds. Mei Shuiyan landed heavily on the ground. But she immediately lifted her head, completely disregarding her own injury. She stared at the direction of the incoming roar as her eyes were filled with deep affection. Mo Xie. I'm so grateful to see you again. Mei Shuiyan's eyes brightened. She used all her remaining strength to tidy her hair. I wish I could always be the most beaut. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 764. If the heavens want you to go, then I shall defy the heavens. In a flash, Jun Mo Xie appeared 300 meters away, looking around frantically. He caught sight of 9 strokes of thunder and lightning beating down on Mei Shuiyan's almost lifeless body. Shuiyan! Jun Mo Xie hollered, fully activated the yin-yang escape and flew across that distance at a miraculous speed, pouncing upon Mei Shuiyan's body. When the lightning came into contact with Jun Mo Xie's body, it faded away. The storm in the skies turned even more violent, brewing for the next wave of attacks. Jun Mo Xie hugged the beautiful woman in his arms tightly, his eyes fixated on Mei Shuiyan's face, not willing to look away for even a second. Mei Shuiyan coughed weakly, blood pouring out of her mouth. Her hair was already charred by the lightning strikes earlier. Her face was bleeding, with none of that valiance in the past, but the look in her eyes still remained as clear as waters, as gentle as the moon. Mei Shuiyan smiled meekly, full of gentleness. She lifted her hand with great difficulty, stroking Jun Mo Xie's face. She said gently, Mo Xie, it's great to be able to see you again before I die. I really want to be your wife. Your real wife. But I'm sorry. I cannot do it anymore. You'll definitely have the chance. No, you definitely can. I guarantee. Jun Mo Xie said in a low voice, as if he were making a vow. His eyes were full of gentleness, holding Mei Shuiyan's fragile body. At this moment, Jun Mo Xie was taken aback. Mei Shuiyan knew of her own condition before him, and with a melancholic smile, she said, it's no use. I won't have this chance anymore. Jun Mo Xie had already been pouring the heaven-earth spiritual qi in his body into Mei Shuiyan in large amounts like crazy the moment he hugged her. From Jun Mo Xie's understanding, Mei Shuiyan had used some mysterious method to alleviate her own capabilities by leaps and folds. Defeating experts of the 3 holy lands, naturally the price to pay wouldn't be small. The lightning tribulations due to her breakthroughs were the final blow. If it were any regular person, they would be dead in a situation like this. But he was here, beside her. As long as he aided and helped her get through this lightning tribulation peacefully, then transfer large amounts of heaven-earth spiritual qi to suit the damages in the body due to the breakthrough, then everything else would be easily solved. But Jun Mo Xie never expected it to be so serious this time. The lightning outside wasn't easily to handle, but the key that would lead to Mei Shuiyan's death still came from her body. To kill 3 saints with the cultivation level of a venerable to get such an unprecedented victory, the price Mei Shuiyan had to pay definitely was not small. She needed to pay with her lifelong cultivation all the life force in her. A woman who had been forced into a corner was undoubtedly crazy. 1 Saint King pill could multiply one's abilities by 10-fold. Mei Shuiyan, for the sake of victory, had consumed 3 Saint King pills at one go in order to get such terrifying capabilities temporarily. Consuming one alone was deadly enough. What sort of miracle would happen after she had taken 3? Jun Mo Xie continuously transferred spiritual qi into Mei Shuiyan, thinking that he could help save his lady, but was shocked to find a violent strength in Mei Shuiyan's body. It was going about in all directions in a frenzy, becoming a terrifying force of destruction. And it was this violent strength that was slowly sapping away at Mei Shuiyan's life force, not letting a single bit go to waste. This violent strength didn't complement with the heaven-earth spiritual qi that he was transferring, strongly forcing it out. If not for him forcefully controlling it, it might have triggered a backlash from that violent strength and speed up Mei Shuiyan's death. To think that we're stuck in an awkward situation like this when we can't proceed or back off. A glimpse of powerlessness flashed across Jun Mo Xie's eyes, but it was taken over by resolution. Hugging Mei Shuiyan, he gently asked, "Who did this?" An unprecedented violent urge to kill overwhelmed his heart. It was as if an ancient, bloodthirsty demon had suddenly awakened. But he looked at Mei Shuiyan and forcefully suppressed this killing intention. Right now, he couldn't let Mei Shuiyan feel any form of distress, otherwise it would only bring her closer to her death. Suddenly suppressing this violent desire to kill caused Jun Mo Xie to jerk slightly and vomit a small trace of blood. Mei Shuiyan could feel the pain and gentleness in Jun Mo Xie's eyes, and she gave a contented smile. None of the aura of a supreme expert remained. She sat limply in his hug and looked at him deeply. Who did it is no longer important. To be able to die in your arms. I am already satisfied. Mo Xie. I hope you can promise me one thing. Jun Mo Xie could still distinctly feel the destruction going on in Mei Shuiyan's body, feeling every single meridian slowly shattering, and the life force slowly fading from her. He didn't dare to be too careless. He asked, "What is it? Say it. No matter what it is. I promise you. I will help you accomplish it." He did not ask what the reason behind Mei Shuiyan's heavy injuries was. Because there was no need to ask from the shocking changes going on inside her body. He could guess that Mei Shuiyan had definitely used some extremely taboo method to forcefully bring her body's capabilities up, thus causing the backlash and heavenly tribulation. And all this was for the sake of the Jun family. For himself. Else, with Mei Shuiyan's speed, if she wished to leave, nothing could hold her back, not even a Saint King. And there was another reason behind all this. The 9 saints. He could clearly understand that when that violent strength in Mei Shuiyan's body disappeared, it would be the end for Mei Shuiyan. And in this whole process, his heaven-earth spiritual qi couldn't be of any use. Even if he forcefully tried to transfuse it, it would only speed up her demise. Only when this violent strength completely dissipated could he then try to enter and change the situation. But Mei Shuiyan's flame would have already been out by that time. He had no confidence in what effects there would be, or if there would even be any effects. If there was no effect, then there was only one route left for him, to watch Mei Shuiyan pass away just like this. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune's divine effects had a prerequisite: the other party must be alive. How could this be? Jun Mo Xie's heart began to tremble violently. To watch his lover suffering from that indescribable pain and torture, but to not be able to help. The injuries in her body he could only look upon, but could not heal at all. A fragmentation and shattering process could be seen with the naked eye. How much pain and agony was Mei Shuiyan, who was personally going through it, experiencing? But this strong woman did not make a single noise, only looking lovingly at Jun Mo Xie. Completely focused. Fixated. Her eyes were full of love. Because she knew that she only had this one last chance left. If she didn't look, then she would never be able to see that beloved face again. I know you are furious. And I also understand your desire to seek revenge for me. But I still hope that you can promise me. You must promise me. Mei Shuayan stroked Jun Mo Xie's face gently. Before you are strong enough. No matter what. Don't go. Don't take any reckless actions. Can you do that? Mei Shuayan begged. Concern and worry in her eyes. She knew how deeply in love Jun Mo Xie was with her. If she died, how big a blow would that be to Jun Mo Xie? She was worried that if Jun Mo Xie impulsively sought revenge for her at all costs. Even at this moment, Mei Shuayan was not the least bit concerned about her diminishing life force. Her heart was still worrying for her beloved. To die for his family she had no regrets. Jun Mo Xie rose like a shooting star. He still lacked in his foundations. And he was still too weak despite his martial arts improving at a shocking speed. And 3 holy lands had 10,000 years of thick foundations. This was a drastic gap. Mei Shuayan could clearly see that if Jun Mo Xie decided to seek revenge, he would definitely be at an advantage since the beginning. But once the Saint Kings became involved, then it would be the start of his downfall. Jun Mo Xie would definitely not stop at killing those few culprits. Mei Shuayan was clear of this. Today, when he looked at her, the anguish in his eyes and the forcefully suppression of that desire to kill, she could tell that this time around, the 3 holy lands and Jun Mo Xie would be stuck in a deadlock. Either the Jun family or the 3 holy lands would perish. There was no third possibility. No room for any possible changes. But in the current situation, the Jun family was still too weak. So Mei Shuayan had to stop Jun Mo Xie from acting recklessly. She endured the pain and agony and begged of him. For the sake of her beloved, for her beloved's family. Jun Mo Xie was shocked. And after a long while, he replied, "You can rest assured about this. If I am not strong enough, I won't go send myself to death. I have patience for something like revenge. Loads of it." As he said this, he bit harshly down on his lips, tearing the skin and blood flowing out. The violent thunder and lightning in the sky continued raging, brewing, beating down one after another upon Jun Mo Xie, who was clinging onto Mei Shuayan, but disappeared without a trace in an instant. "You promised. I believe in you." Mei Shuayan smiled, feeling the life force in her body gradually becoming weaker. She couldn't help but let out a mournful smile. "Mo Xie, I really need to leave now. I only ask one last thing of you." 2 teardrops gathered in her eyes, sliding down from the corner of her eyes and landing on her ground. "Forget me. You're leaving. Ha ha ha. I won't allow you to leave. The heavens can forget about taking you away." Jun Mo Xie growled, suddenly spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, his eyes turning red. "As long as I don't allow it, even the heavens can't do it. If the heaven wants you to go, then I shall defy the heavens." Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 765. To die. To return to heaven. As long as I am alive, you will definitely not die. Even if I am dead, you will not die. Forget you? Leave this sentence for your next life. No, you shall not say such things even in your next life. You are not allowed to say it for eternity. There was a loud clap of thunder. The Condor King flew over from afar and landed beside them in an instant, his body shaking. Looking at Mei Shui Yan's pitiful form, he couldn't help but fall to his knees, crying out, "Sis! You really? Why were you so silly? Condor King, go back first." Jun Mo Xie didn't turn his head. "Tell the rest that your sis will be fine. I will get her treated." Condor King perked up and looked at him in surprise. "For real? Sis used." But he only saw Jun Mo Xie nod his head firmly. This time, he already made up his resolution. Even if the Hongjun Pagoda was destroyed, he must save Mei Shui Yan. "I cannot live without her." Condor King looked at the both of them, reluctant to part, but he finally spread his wings and flew off. He knew that no matter the outcome, this time and space right now was for his brother-in-law and sister only. It was not apt for him to stay behind. He was also not willing to interrupt these two lovers, so he decided to fly away. Even though his heart was hurting, even though he really wished to stay behind and take care of his boss. Mo Xie. Mei Shui Yan smiled gently. "My husband. Thank you. I also wish to spend the rest of eternity holding your hand." Jun Mo Xie trembled. This was the first time Mei Shui Yan had addressed him as husband. And she was the first woman in this world to address him as such. "Shui Yan. My beloved wife, we will definitely grow old together. With our children." Tears began to stream down Jun Mo Xie's eyes. He pressed his face against her face gently, feeling as if his heart was about to explode. He couldn't breathe and felt like he was suffocating. "In a while. Just leave me here, and go off on your own." Mei Shui Yan begged, her body still convulsing. She could feel the last bit of her life leaving her, but she still indulgently inhaled the manly scent on Jun Mo Xie's body. With a weak voice, she said, "I don't wish for you to see my other appearance. I beg of you. No matter how you look like later, you will still be my wife." Jun Mo Xie said tyrannically, leaving no room for discussion. A glimpse of satisfaction flashed in Mei Shui Yan's eyes. "I am content. I really am content." Mo Xie. "Put me down. Please. I beg you. I don't want you to see me like that. Don't make me hate you. Please." Jun Mo Xie hugged her firmly. "No way. No way. No way. You can give up on trying to get me to let go of you. This life. Next life. Forever." Mei Shui Yan blushed. She sighed meekly and mustered the last of her energy to nudge Jun Mo Xie's chest with her head. Suddenly, tears started to fall uncontrollably from her as her entire body shivered. Choking with sobs, she said, "Mo Xie. I hope you will remember Mei Shui Yan. Not me. Don't let them see me. Please. I beg you." Then, the last shred of violent strength left her body, bringing her last bit of life energy along with it. In this instant, Mei Shui Yan felt enlightened and finally understood the meaning behind one statement. She laughed bitterly and said, "Tian Fa won't find what it seeks. The beast kings will die. Tian Fa's millions will depend on the success or failure of one person. So this is what it means." Then she turned silent. She looked lovingly into Jun Mo Xie's eyes, her look turning to that of shame and guilt. Finally, she stopped moving. Her body suddenly began to shrink in Jun Mo Xie's arms, transforming into a small beast covered in snowy white fur, unconscious and on the verge of dying. Rings of invisible energy disappeared from her body. For every ring that faded away, her cultivation level dropped by a level. The terrifying backlash from the Saint King pills had finally reached its most crucial stage. The tribulation clouds were gone, but the skies remained dark. Strong winds howled as the sky darkened. Was it going to rain? Jun Mo Xie sighed tenderly, looking at the trembling form of Mei Shuiyan in his arms lovingly. So. It was you. I should have known. In this moment, a lot of things clicked in place for Jun Mo Xie. Why Mei Shuiyan kept picking on him, making things difficult for him since they were in Tianfa forest, constantly making fun of him. Jun Mo Xie had always been confused as to how he offended her, but now everything made sense. So, Mei Shuiyan was that little beast he had met in Tianfa forest. That snow ferret that he had behaved indecently to. So that's why. No wonder Mei Shuiyan said, I hope you will remember Mei Shuiyan. Not me. So that's how it is. Jun Mo Xie finally understood why Mei Shuiyan had that look of shame and guilt even when her life was on the verge of ending. Because she was afraid. Afraid that he would look down upon her real form, because she would always be a Xian beast, never a human. You silly girl. Jun Mo Xie gently kissed her mouth and said, I knew you were not human from the start. Why are you so bothered by this? Don't worry. Before you recover, I will not let anyone see you. You are you. You will forever be my beautiful beloved in my heart. Jun Mo Xie waited silently, waiting for that moment when the energy from the backlash thoroughly vanished from Mei Shuiyan's body. Only when it was all over, when Mei Shuiyan fell to the lowest tier, could the heaven-earth spiritual qi be of use. Before that happened, he absolutely could not try to save her. If he was slightly reckless, then it would lead to Mei Shuiyan completely disappearing from this world. He frowned deeply, the desire to commit murder showing on his face. 9 Nether First Young Master. It is not that I am not giving you face, but now that things have become like this, if I do not wipe the existence of 3 holy lands from this world, how can I be worthy of my beloved wife? How can I even call myself a man? He had whispered this sentence. No one else other than himself heard it. Only heaven and earth could hear it. This sentence, that had gone unheard, had no curses. But Jun Mo Xie knew that it was the most vicious vow he had ever made in his 2 lifetimes. So what if you are the 9 Nether First Young Master? So what if they are your disciples? So what about the safety of this continent? So what about all the lives in this world? Jun Mo Xie slowly raised his head and screamed. So what if I have to bear the cost of all the sins in this world? This was a scream from his soul. But it also marked the return of the god of death. The 3 holy lands. I, Jun Mo Xie, will not rest until you are all dead. Finally, the last ring of energy dissipated. In the moment that last ring faded from Mei Shuiyan's body, Jun Mo Xie poured his heaven-earth spiritual qi in. There was not a single gap in the timing. Mei Shuiyan's flame, that was flickering out, was stabilized once again. Jun Mo Xie did not dare be too rough, pouring the qi in gently as he treated the external wounds on her. Mei Shuiyan, right now, was worse off than the weakest of a beast's cubs. Any sort of roughness could have dire consequences. Mei Shuiyan's shoulder was struck through by lightning, and her chest pierced through by a sword. Although these injuries were fatal, they were not a big problem with Jun Mo Xie's heaven-earth spiritual qi. The real problem was that all of Mei Shuiyan's meridians were thoroughly shattered by that violent strength. Not a single bit was still intact. It was in a complete mess. Aside from having her life forcefully salvaged by Jun Mo Xie, she was currently just a body that could not feel or sense anything. She was already unconscious. Plus, Jun Mo Xie had no idea what sort of martial arts Mei Shuiyan had been practicing. This was a difficult problem. Jun Mo Xie frowned in distress. At this time, a stroke of lightning flashed across the sky, followed by thunderous claps. Raindrops began to fall from the sky. This was an ordinary rain to Jun Mo Xie. It was nothing to be bothered by. But to the current Mei Shuiyan, a single raindrop would be enough to cause her significant damage. We can't stay here. Jun Mo Xie looked at the sky and said, as the owner of the Hongjun Pagoda, I request to bring someone in with me. If I am denied, I shall destroy the pagoda. He had already made the decision to let Mei Shuiyan cultivate and practice in the Hongjun Pagoda. If I cannot enter, then what use do I have for you? I might as well just break you back into two. Do you think I cherish you that much? If you don't fulfill my wish, then I don't need you. Compared to my beloved, you really are nothing. Jun Mo Xie was irritated and decisive on this. Gritting his teeth, he even decided how he was going to handle this fellow if he got rejected. But just as he had this thought, he disappeared from reality and appeared inside the misty interiors of the Hongjun Pagoda. Mei Shuiyan was still in his arms. Jun Mo Xie was a little surprised. Thinking was one matter, and being decisive was another, but actually getting what he wanted was yet another. He had brought things inside the Hongjun Pagoda prior to this, but they had always been non-human things like herbs, rocks, etc. But this time, he had managed to bring in another person in with no problem. Jun Mo Xie was a little not used to this sort of convenience. But he didn't know that the Hongjun Pagoda had never rejected other living things being brought in. Since it had recovered its pearls, it was already complete. Had Jun Mo Xie wished to bring in an army of 10,000 men inside, in theory, he could. But his cultivation level was not high enough to bring so many people in yet. But young Master Jun was still unaware of this. He was still thinking gleefully that his threat was effective. So this fellow is scared of harsh threats. Looks like I've been too gentle with you last time. Upon entering the Hongjun Pagoda, Jun Mo Xie began to heal Mei Shuiyan's injuries. He didn't know how different the meridians of a Xian beast were from a human, neither does he know which circulation route does Mei Shuiyan use. But after a long consideration, he decided, since all of Mei Shuiyan's meridians are already shattered, the regular circulation routes no longer exists. The situation is already so bad it cannot get any worse. So I shall just rebuild something completely new from scratch. Directly using the purest heaven-earth spiritual qi to reform the meridians. Mold it according to my own body's meridians. Then use the art of unlocking heaven's fortune to activate the circulation routes for her to recover her cultivations. I don't believe that the art of unlocking heaven's fortune cannot be compared to the skills of the Tianfa forest. That will be a huge joke. But Jun Mo Xie doesn't know that his decision has helped to really recreate Mei Shuiyan. Because this near-death experience this time has really fulfilled the part on, the Beast Kings will die. The art of unlocking heaven's fortune comes from ancient times, the only divine skill in this world. This time, it has really allowed Mei Shuiyan return to Tat Hada 1. This is the beginning of Mei Shuiyan's real powers. Furthermore, the powerful heaven-earth spiritual qi in Hongjun Pagoda is denser than Tianfa forest by 10,000 folds. How can training in Tianfa forest compare to training in here? Furthermore, the spirit energy cultivated in this place are innate and need no further purification. Mei Shuaiyan's original skills always had a limit, although it is arts that were of apex level. Once her time is up, even a deity cannot save her. But now that it has been changed over to the art of unlocking heaven's fortune, things are different. She could achieve spending her lifetime with her husband, for eternity. To thrive after death, be rebuilt after being broken, to succeed after defeat. Of course, with such tremendous benefits, there would be numerous risks as well. The heavenly tribulation from Mei Shuaiyan practicing this skill as a Xian beast during her breakthroughs was impossible for her to bear. This was the same logic as demons in Legends from Earth. It would be 100 times harder for them compared to a human. But she would always have Jun Mo Xie beside her. And Jun Mo Xie's Hongjun Pagoda was not afraid of any lightning tribulations. So after Mei Shuaiyan recultivated her skills, there would be no obstructions before her. Naturally, all this would be for a later time. Jun Mo Xie had spent 3 days and 3 nights in the Hongjun Pagoda recasting her meridians before it could be counted as successfully accomplished. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 766. Jun Zhan Tian's decision. The insides of her body were so damaged that it would be an insanely difficult matter to connect and restructure her meridians into a usable form. Jun Mo Xie had to make something out of nothing. How could it be easy? Over the course of these 3 days, with Jun Mo Xie's current inner strength of spirit energy, even with such strong backup support from a completed Hongjun Pagoda, he still ran out of spirit energy over 10 times. He could not afford any careless mistakes as he recasted Mei Shuaiyan's meridians. Any wrong move would be considered an unrecoverable failure. Jun Mo Xie had completely and thoroughly combed through his own meridians, from head to toe, covering every little detail of it. He even opened a reference of the meridians in the human body within the Hongjun Pagoda to carefully differentiate and proceed accordingly to the differences in the male and female body. Advancing inch by inch, no, centimeter by centimeter. Mei Shuaiyan never regained consciousness throughout this process. However, it was visible that things were making good progress. Her body was becoming stronger, and the external injuries completely disappearing. Her white fur changed to a healthy, radiant glow. Although her meridians were difficult to heal, her Xian skills would be hard to recover and her human form was gone, but her life was secured. This was already an extremely good beginning. Jun Mo Xie looked at her tenderly, gently picking her up and hugging her in his arms. Shuaiyan, this place is my biggest secret. When you wake up, I will slowly tell you about it and share this huge secret with you. I will wait for you. No matter what. This will not change, even until the end of time. He carefully put the small creature onto the heaven-earth spirit vein he brought back from the snowy mountains. A green little tree had grown on it, radiating dazzling balls of light that slowly dispersed into the air and filled up the entire space within the Hongjun Pagoda. The entire space within the Hongjun Pagoda seemed a little more lively. This little tree was the small magical tree that had accompanied Dongfang when exiled for 10 years. Jun Mo Xie had shifted it into the Hongjun Pagoda when he was at the Dongfang family. To be more exact, it had forcefully attached itself to Jun Mo Xie and entered the Hongjun Pagoda. After that huge spirit vein from Blizzard's Silver City had been shifted into the Hongjun Pagoda, this little tree had automatically moved and connected itself directly to it, growing its roots there. Within a few days, it grew dramatically and was about the height of 2 people combined. That originally tiny tree crown had also grown abundantly, looking like a huge umbrella now. And this small tree also had its own great benefits. Thick life energy oozed continuously out from it, the purest of its kind in this world. Mei Shuiyan's small body was placed right in the center beneath the crown of the tree. The countless sparkles floated out and slowly entered Mei Shuiyan's body, dissolving into her meridians. This small tree was like the gentlest hand, constantly comforting Mei Shuiyan's injured body. Shuiyan, just rest well and recuperate in here for now. You have sustained injuries that were too severe this time. It will be difficult to recover you into your original state immediately. I need to go home once to make arrangements first. Don't worry, I will come often to visit you. You won't be alone. I'll tell you more secrets. This place is actually the deepest part of my soul, and it is also my biggest secret. From this moment on, we can be said to have become one. When you wake up and recover, I will tell you all about it. Jun Mo Xie sat quietly beside Mei Shuiyan's small unconscious body, reluctant to part. He slowly stood up and laughed bitterly. Shuiyan, you've always been helping me all along, always supporting behind me. I am really happy and also very guilty. Did you know that I had finally found confidence and happiness in my heart after I had you? I will definitely not allow anything to happen to you. Shuiyan, from today onwards, it is my turn to support you, protect you, and accompany you until the end of time. Because I am your man. This is my responsibility. My responsibility as a man. He took one last look before steeling his heart and exiting the Hongjun Pagoda with a turn of his body. In the Hongjun Pagoda, the unusually thick heaven-earth spiritual qi hovered about like white mist. A small, green tree stood amidst it quietly, releasing life energy. Mei Shuiyan's tiny body rested quietly on that heaven-earth spirit vein, as if she had fallen asleep peacefully. A shirt covered her body. Jun Mo Xie had just taken it off. It still carried his body's warmth and scent. It carried the emotions accumulated from him in 2 lifetimes. The Jun family. It was all silent. The place was full of people and beasts. Everyone had gathered here. Although the majority were humans, no one made a single noise. The atmosphere was heavy. An unprecedented anguish and anger in the atmosphere was brewing and gathering in the air. The episode that night was like a large stone that had weighed heavily on everyone's heart, making it impossible for them to breathe. Although the Condor King had brought news along with his return, allowing everyone to heave a sigh of relief, everyone was still waiting for a definite answer from Jun Mo Xie. Everyone's greatest concern was Mei Shuiyan's fate. Nothing else was greater than this matter. No one slept or even rested the past few days. Their eyes were all glued to the door. The Beast Kings were the most anxious. They were most clear of the terrifying effects of the Saint King pill. That was the taboo item that Tianfei's first Saint King had left behind. Although they were confident in their brother-in-law Jun Mo Xie, no matter what, they still couldn't be optimistic about it. On the other side, in the study room of the Jun residence, all the members of the Jun family had been gathered in here. Jun Zhan Tian looked at Dongfang Wen Xian, Jun Wu Yi, Guan Qinghan, Dugu Xiao Yi, and Han Yan Yao, who were before him with an extremely solemn expression before he slowly announced his decision. I only recently found out that Shuiyan is a Xian beast and the lord of Tianfa, Venerable Mei. Humans and Xian beasts will always be different, no matter how excellent Shuiyan is or how admirable her status is. But what Shuiyan has done for the Jun family is the greatest amongst everyone else. Her support to Mo Xie is also the greatest. Had it not been Shui Yan, perhaps the Jun residence would have been destroyed. The Jun family ancestral teachings have always taught us to have an indomitable spirit and a clear conscience. Shui Yan has given and contributed greatly to Mo Xie, to the Jun family. A daughter-in-law like this old man acknowledges it. Everyone nodded. The love Mei Shui Yan had for Jun Mo Xie, her sacrifices for the Jun family, everyone has witnessed it. But as a human, Mo Xie marrying Shui Yan will definitely stir great controversy in the world, or even criticism. Perhaps even people within our family will allow their tongues to wag. So today, I am going to make it clear first. He paused for a moment before continuing. To everyone present, Wen Xian is Mo Xie's mother. Wu Yi and Yan Yao are his third uncle and third aunt. Qing Han and Xiao Yi are wives who have yet to be married into our family. There are no outsiders, so I will not hide or conceal it. I will be the one to make this decision today. Shui Yan has met an accident right now, but no matter what the outcome is, she will be Mo Xie's wife. Is everyone clear? Everyone nodded in agreement. Dongfang Wen Xian said, everyone is clear of this. A good girl like Shui Yan is almost impossible to find. Even if you did not saying this, I would not allow Shui Yan to be bullied. I have already acknowledged her position since a long time ago. I only pray that the heavens will bless her and not let anything bad happen to her. Guan Qing Han and Dugu Xiao Yi's eyes turned red and nodded, worry clear in their expressions. We pray that Sister Shui Yan can be safe. Heaven will bless those who are kind. Jun Zhan Tian nodded. Shui Yan will be Mo Xie's official wife if she is alive. If she really passes on, she shall become the mistress of the third generation and be buried in the ancestral graves of the Jun family. Shui Yan is bigger than the two of you. I presume you two would not have any issues with it. This sentence was directed to Guan Qing Han and Dugu Xiao Yi. They both locked eyes with each other and nodded quickly. Dugu Xiao Yi said, Grandpa, don't worry. I really admire Sister Shui Yan. Why would I have any issues? I agree with her as the eldest. Sister Guan as second, and me as third. Mentally, she added, I can't be the first. And being the third isn't too bad either. There's someone else already eyeing that position. If I am not fast enough, maybe I'll become fourth. The Jun family nodded in satisfaction. One more thing, from today onwards, if anyone in the Jun family dares to make any topics of Xian beasts and humans, then no matter who they are, they shall be executed without mercy. Write this into the Jun family ancestral teachings from this moment. I make this decision as the eldest member of the Jun family. Jun Wuyi nodded. Rest assured, Father, if anyone dares to use this as a topic, I, the current master of the family, will not let him off. I will personally execute him. Jun Zhan Tian nodded his head and rubbed his brows. All right. All of you go down. If Mo Xie returns with news of Shui Yan, no matter what, you have to let me know of it immediately. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 767. Could longevity be possible? Father, it's better for you to rest for a while. You haven't rested for 3 days and 3 nights. How can your body take it if you continue like this? Han Yanyao said worriedly. How could I be at ease without any news about Shui Yan? Jun Zhan Tian let out a long sigh. She's such a good girl. Everyone else nodded in agreement, deep worry showing on their faces. With no confirmed news regarding Shui Yan, no one could really feel at ease. Finally, Jun Mo Xie appeared at the entrance of the Jun residence. Long Crane, Big Bear, and everyone else who had gathered and waited here rushed forward to question Jun Mo Xie. They all wore complicated expressions. They were hopeful, but also worried, afraid that they would hear news they were all unwilling to hear. Everyone looked at Jun Mo Xie in anticipation. Many beast kings, who had already attained their human forms, towered over him in their bulky forms, but tears welled up in their eyes. Brother-in-law, sis. How is she? Brother-in-law, you're back. But where's big sis? Brother-in-law, how is big sis now? Are her injuries very severe? She will be able to return soon, right? Where's my big sis? Why didn't she come back with brother-in-law? Brother-in-law, we can't be without big sis. While everyone was cleaning up the room, they discovered the message Mei Shuiyan had left behind. From today onwards, the orders of Jun Mo Xie are also Mei Shuiyan's orders. No beasts of Tian Fa are allowed to defy him. While everyone had seen this message, their hearts were extremely heavy. A message like this was extremely ill foreboding. The battle from that night had left everyone feeling extremely anxious. And now seeing Jun Mo Xie return alone, everyone was almost hysterical. Looking at the sincere loyalty and unconcealed worry and concern on these burly men's faces, Jun Mo Xie was moved. Who said that Xian beasts were cold-blooded? The feelings of Xian beasts were the most sincere. It was priceless, impossible to be concealed or hidden. Shuiyan, you should feel extremely proud to have a bunch of brothers and sisters like them. I will do my best for brothers like this, even putting our relationship aside. It is true that humans and Xian beasts are not a match. Xian beasts never know how to hide or conceal, unlike crafty humans. Compared to these pure-hearted Xian beasts, some humans are truly worse than a beast. Everyone can rest assured. Your big sis did sustain extremely heavy injuries this time, but her life is no longer in danger after being treated by me. Her injuries this time are truly more complicated, so I've already sent her to my master's place. He is treating her already. He has made it clear that there will be no problem. Only that she will take a long time to recuperate. You don't need to be so anxious. I will keep you all updated on the news of your big sis's recovery. But this recuperation period is extremely crucial, so no one must disturb her. Jun Mo Xie decided that this was the most reassuring reason he could give everyone. Ah! Long live! Big sis is all right. I knew brother-in-law had remarkable abilities. He can handle anything. Even if it is the Saint King pill. Ha ha ha. Big Bear jumped and grinned in joy. That's great. That's great. Long live brother-in-law. Brother-in-law's master is really a good person. If I ever get to meet him, I swear I will kowtow to him 10,000 times. Big sis is safe. Ha ha ha. Sob. Sob. Earthcracker rubbed his eyes, laughing and crying at the same time. All the other beasts rejoiced from this great news. Their worries all vanished as they celebrated. The Xian beasts all cried at the same time, and the sound resonated throughout the whole of Tianxiang. Ha ha ha. Earthcracker. Did you forget that Big Sis always picked on you first? And Big Bear. Look at how happy you are. We were all watching when Big Sis kicked your ass. Just watch. During this time Big Sis is not around. If we do not take good care of Tian Fa Forest, when she returns, she will still need to clean up after the two of you. When that happens, we shall all just watch the drama and not help speak up for you too. Long Crane rubbed his red eyes. cleverly hiding the tears of joy that had fallen. He finally felt relieved. And his mood turned better. He began to make jokes about Big Bear and Tiger King. It's just a scolding and beating. Big Sis teaching us a lesson means that she cares for us. At least we are not children who are not loved by anyone. We are willing. And we are happy. Can you do anything about it? Long Crane. You also have been reprimanded by Big Sis quite often. We are all the same. If we do not take good care of TNFA, when Big Sis returns, do you think you could escape? To think you have the cheek to be rejoicing about our misfortunes. Could you be envious? Big Bear taunted back, leaving no mercy. Big Sis did discipline me, but she will always leave some face for me. Unlike you guys. If you don't go through a round of beating, you wouldn't get the point at all. Long Crane rolled his eyes. Screw you. Leaving some face for you? When you were chased by Big Sis and running around TNFA forest in circles, Big Sis had already given you a round of beating. Who didn't see it? Big Sis really left some face for you. That face was so much it was shocking. Earthcracker laughed loudly. Xian cranes are naturally thick-skinned. I am truly inferior to you in this aspect. That was an accident. That time. Feck. I won't let you guys off. Long Crane had ran out of comebacks. He pounced forward and the three of them engaged in a brawl. It seemed as if this joyous mood had infected everyone in the Jun residence. Everyone was smiling and rejoicing. All sorts of beastly cries for joy resonated across the place. Despite feeling giddy from that wave of cries, everyone else in the Jun family was smiling at ease. Finally, she is all right. God bless. Just seeing this bunch of guys celebrate, although it was a little uncomfortable on the ears. But, just watching them was enough to make anyone else feel happy as well. Jun Mo Xie was also laughing happily. But he also made a resolution in his mind. Xue Yan. I will let you recover as quickly as possible. No matter what it takes. I will let you return to this bunch of comrades. Their feelings to you are absolutely real. I am really happy for you. And for myself. They are your good brothers. Which makes them good brothers of mine. After laughing with Long Crane and the rest for a while, Jun Mo Xie entered the hall and the study room. The moment he had entered the door, Jun Zhan Tian, Dongfang Xie, and the rest had noticed that something was off about Jun Mo Xie today. Only close kin of his could detect this. Jun Mo Xie had shed some of his usual flightiness, but gained a bit of calmness, an indescribable calmness. Like a volcano before it erupted. Like the ocean before a hurricane. Although it was calm, it was hard to predict. Although he still wore that usual faint smile, but there was an extra hint of somberness in his smile. Every step he took was like a moving volcano, capable of erupting any moment. Looking at him, everyone couldn't help but feel anxious again. Could that good news Jun Mo Xie said earlier be false? Was it only to comfort the TNFA beasts? Mo Xie. Tell mother. How is Xue Yan? We want the truth. Dongfang Xie was the first to ask. Everyone's eyes were on Jun Mo Xie's face. It is true that Xue Yan's life is no longer in danger. But she was really injured badly. Too badly. Jun Mo Xie laughed bitterly before continuing. To make a complete, full recovery, it takes too long, too long. There was unconcealed frustration and pain in Jun Mo Xie's eyes. Mei Xue Yan had fallen to the lowest level. She wasn't even a first-level Xian beast. To recover her original fourth-level venerable level, even with the aid of Hongjun Pagoda, it would still take an extremely long time to recover. It would be an unbearably long time. Her original capabilities was the result of Mei Shuiyan's accumulation over a few hundred years. They completely vanished in one day. How could they be easy to return back to the peak? To put in an even more pessimistic way, no one here in the Jun family would live long enough to see Mei Shuiyan regain her human form again. At this instance, a light bulb went off in Jun Mo Xie's head. He recalled that the 9 Nether First Young Master had 99 wives in this continent alone. And when he went over to Earth, he had also vaguely mentioned that these wives had followed him over. There was one sentence went along the lines of the wives' cultivation level was not enough, so he had to wait a few more years. His wives were all people from Xian continent, ordinary people like his grandfather, mother, and third uncle. How did they manage to live 10,000s of years with him? Could there be some sort of secret to this? Jun Mo Xie went into deep thoughts. Longevity. Could it be possible? Jun Mo Xie had another matter to think about from this moment on. As long as she is all right, that is the greatest news already. Dongfang Wen Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Mo Xie, no matter what, you must not let Shuiyan down in this life, or I will be the first one to not let you off. Dongfang Wen Xian was feeling extremely guilty in her heart. After all, Mei Shuiyan had battled the saints without worrying for herself for Dongfang Wen Xian's sake. This had moved Dongfang Wen Xian deeply, but also made her feel guilty, feeling like she had implicated her daughter-in-law. I won't. Jun Mo Xie nodded firmly with determination in his eyes. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 768. Jun Mo Xie. Li Yu ran. Mo Xie. Don't worry. With heaven's blessing, Sister Shuiyan will definitely recover quickly. Guan Qinghan said gently. No matter how and what decisions you make, we will all support you and wait for you. Guan Qinghan was an intelligent person. She had sensed the huge change in Jun Mo Xie. If it were the old Jun Mo Xie, although he was merciless in his acts, he was still a boy inside. But this moment, after this matter, Jun Mo Xie had become a man. An indomitable man. 100%. She had also clearly sensed that the emotional impact on Jun Mo Xie was unprecedentedly huge. But no matter what, she was willing to wait. This was also the first time Guan Qinghan had conveyed her feelings towards Jun Mo Xie. Although the current Jun Mo Xie was still ruthless and strong, without a doubt, this was the time he was the most vulnerable and helpless in his heart, especially in his emotions. And he needed her comfort. Dugu Xiao Yi looked at Jun Mo Xie and said in a serious manner, Brother Mo Xie, what Sister Guan said was what I wanted to say. No matter what, we will always be by your side until Sister Shuiyan returns. Jun Mo Xie smiled and looked at both of them. Don't worry. She will be fine. I will also be fine. You guys will also be fine. He paused for a while before continuing. I am going to go and train. Then he turned around and exited. Dongfang Wen Xian was feeling a little troubled as she watched Jun Mo Xie's back slowly disappear from sight. Astonished, she turned her head around and said, Something's wrong. With Mo Xie's vengeful personality, how could he not mention anything about taking revenge after suffering such a huge disadvantage this time? He didn't even ask for the names of his foes. This is too odd, isn't it? Everyone else began to feel confused after she pointed this out. Jun Zhan Tian sighed. Is it really odd? From today onwards, Mo Xie has become a real man. And for men, some things only need to be done, without needing to be said. What meaning is there in talking about this revenge? The only proof needed is to get it done. Regarding who the foes are, Mo Xie would probably be the clearest amongst all of us. Why would he need to ask? It was late at night. Li Yuran sat silently in his room in the second prince's residence. The oil lamp before him flickered. His face was deep in thoughts, as if he were waiting for something. After a long while, with a flash of a shadow, another person appeared in his room. White clothes, sharp brows, a handsome but expressionless face. Hands behind his back. The look in his eyes were sharp and cold. It was Jun Mo Xie. Jun Mo Xie wanted revenge, but he knew who he was up against. Speaking of it before his family members would only cause them to worry. So he didn't speak of it. But he knew that there was one other person who would know the answers, and be more clear of it than anyone else. This person was Li Yuran. So after he had reached his courtyard, he initiated the yin-yang escape and stormed over. Be patient. I can't. Fecking. Be. If I don't make the blood of the three holy lands flow like rivers, I will change my name to Xie Mo Jun. No longer Jun Mo Xie. You've come. I knew you would definitely come and find me. I've been waiting. Li Yuran smiled and said, calmly filling up a teacup before him. The moment Jun Mo Xie appeared, Li Yuran seemed to be relieved. He raised his head and looked at Jun Mo Xie, smiling. He said, if you still did not come and find me, I would have really started to worry. Jun Mo Xie laughed and said, Li Yuran. Did you know? Your greatest flaw is that you are too clever. Being too clever may not be a good thing, but sometimes, if you are not clever enough, you may end up dying with no burial grounds. Li Yuran laughed nonchalantly. Third young master, at least on this matter, you and I are the same kind of people. But if I were you, I would definitely not hastily attract the attention of the three holy lands. In the face of absolute power, even if you have 1,001 tricks, it is insignificant. The current change in situation is the best proof. You have miscalculated on this. I know. If you were me, you will choose to hide and bear with it, until the day you have powers that no one else can retaliate or go against. With powers that would shock the world, you would then reveal your real strength and sweep through the entire pugilistic world. You would use the most bloody, most cruel methods to wipe away all the voices that defy you. For the sake of your goals, you wouldn't care about the costs. You would do whatever it takes, by hook or by crook, to attain it. Those who obey you shall flourish. Those who defy you shall die. Jun Mo Xie grinned and sat down before him. That is you, Li Yuran. But it is not I, Jun Mo Xie. You are right. I do have that sort of mindset. So we are ultimately two different types of people. Li Yuran said, the methods I use may be despicable, ruthless, and even low. But at least before I become strong enough, I will not become the target of everyone. But you, since you made such a strong appearance, everyone started to swarm towards you. Although it is exhilarating, it is glorious, but it is the ultimate risk. It is the taller trees in the woods that get their tops blown off. A person in a high position is liable to be attacked. You may be unharmed. But what about those around you? Your fatal weakness is that you have risen too quickly. Li Yuran had hit the nail. And the only person who rose is you, with no solid foundations to back you up. And the speed at which you have risen has attracted the attention and fear of those at the top. If they do not defeat you, who else would they go for? Even if you maintained a good relationship with 3 holy lands, they would still wipe you out. Because the threat from the speed you have risen at is too big. So big that no one can tolerate. So big that no one dares to tolerate it. Li Yuran was a little envious as he hissed. As someone at the top, no one will just sit and watch you rise. Because your rising has no end. You are only 18. Just 18 years old. But they have spent all their lives practicing, perhaps even hundreds of years. But a majority of them are nowhere near you. If you don't die, how could they be at ease? Are they supposed to just sit and watch you rise to the top and slowly crush them under your feet? Listen to your commands? That is something no one can accept. Jun Mo Xie laughed coldly. To seize things beyond your control is what it means to be alive. If I cannot control it, I will make a mess out of it. Otherwise, what meaning is there in living? To live like you, enduring for your entire life, only explode later? Then isn't your entire life too dull and boring? I am Jun Mo Xie. I want to make the winds and the clouds move under my control. I want everyone to be wary of me. Looking upon this world with cold eyes. I want to be wild. Jun Mo Xie declared. So what if it's the 3 holy lands? If they do not wish to be stepped upon by me, then am I supposed to just not do so? But in this world, some gray areas need to be eliminated, understood, and faced. Perhaps you may think that I am despicable, shameless, and heartless, but you would feel most comfortable believing someone like me. Because I only believe in myself. Other than that, there is no one else. But someone like you also lives the most pitiably. Jun Mo Xie looked at him in pity. Pitiful or not, everyone has their own take on it. Li Yuran expressed, upright and unafraid. As long as I do not find it pitiable, then I am successful in this life. And as long as I succeed in the end, does it even matter making these few sacrifices? Perhaps. Everyone's life is in the deepest parts of their hearts. We have our own stand on this. Jun Mo Xie said. You should know why I have come today. Of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be waiting for you. Li Yuran smiled. And I'm glad that you have not come to kill me. Kill you, perhaps in the future. But not for now. You have a reason for me to not kill you. Jun Mo Xie said differently, a threatening gleam in his eyes. Aside from finding more reasons for you to not kill me, I will also not let you have the opportunity to kill me. Li Yuran laughed. Because I am clear about myself. And I have seen through you as well. For example, how one can only be friends with third young master and not enemies. Even if we cannot be friends, we must not become foes. After saying this, Li Yuran quickly changed the topic and said, what is it that you wish to know? Let's get straight to the point. I want to know everything you are aware of. Everything. Jun Mo Xie said coldly, the killing intent in his eyes flashing across. All right. This matter happened too suddenly, and now that you are here, I can only say, I am really sorry. I admit that I had no ability to change this matter. Third young master. I am a selfish person. I always have been. And even at that point in time, the thought of going to warn you did not even pass my mind at all. Whether I made my way out or be able to warn you successfully, there would only be one outcome for me, death. Li Yuran honestly said. Furthermore, with so many implications, it is impossible for Venerable Mei to avoid this. Even if I had sent a letter in advance, it will still be the same. She would not have been able to escape. Get to the point. Li Yu ran. Whether you are selfish or not, that is your problem. It has nothing to do with me. And I don't care. Jun Mo Xie said apathetically. I only want to know the process. The entire process of this matter. Who the ones behind this scheme were. Li Yuran laughed bitterly. The 3 holy lands. This time, they sent out 3 saints, 4 venerables, and a leader, who seemed to be a venerable expert. There weren't many people, but their combined prowess was extremely powerful. He didn't wait for Jun Mo Xie to ask further questions, going into details about the lineup from 3 holy lands this time. Jun Mo Xie only sat quietly, remembering the names coming out of his mouth. These are the culprits behind Mei Shuayan's severe injuries. Whether or not they were involved directly or indirectly, not a single one of them shall be let off. The one who decided on the plan was the Yin-Yang saint, Jiang Jun Xie. Li Yuran laughed bitterly. At first, he had suggested capturing your grandfather as hostage to force your master to reveal himself. But I managed to change their mind. After that, I don't know how, but they managed to find out that the Jun residence was actually weak and confirmed that your unrivaled master was not in your house. That led to this plan. And just at that time, Venerable Mei returned with the rest of the troops. As to what happened afterwards, I believe you know. Li Yuran casually reminded Jun Mo Xie about the favor he had secretly done for him. Although it was not spelt it out clearly, he believed that Jun Mo Xie would understand his intentions and also not deny it. Yin-Yang Saint. Jiang Jun Xie. Jun Mo Xie muttered this name, a sinister gleam appearing in his eyes as he spoke under his breath. I will let that person know that this world is a terrifying place. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 769. A stratagem for you, to destroy the Holy Lands. Jun Mo Xie had only muttered with a slightly soft voice and did not use a heavy tone, but Li Yuran felt a chill in his heart and couldn't help but shiver. Seeing Jun Mo Xie shifting his focus to him, Li Yuran felt that he had great foresight in deciding to aid Jun Mo Xie. And he actually felt a little happy. So where have all these people run off to now? Jun Mo Xie paused for a while before continuing. If they are still here in the residential palace, you probably wouldn't dare to speak of this here. Li Yuran sweated. I'll be honest. In the battle that night, all 3 saints from Illusory Blood Sea were wiped out. The other saints also sustained injuries from Venerable Mei's sword Qi and the might of the heavenly tribulations. They were even more afraid of the Xian beasts blindly going after them for revenge and thought that they might not be able to retreat without sustaining further injuries. So they all left the city overnight. Currently, their whereabouts are unknown. Li Yuran had a hint of self-mockery in his eyes. Because when they had left the city, they did not inform him and did not even think of bringing him along. This showed that he wasn't anything in their eyes or minds. Perhaps he was just a burden. From start to end, I was just an insignificant, minor little character in their eyes. Once I no longer have any value, they just toss me aside. It didn't matter if I lived or died. This is worse than even an abandoned son. But I am also human. And I may not necessarily be worse than you all. I need to even surpass you all in my wisdom. What right do you have to treat me as such? I may not be capable enough to kill you all, but someone else can. And under my manipulation, I can speed up your doom. Now a minor character like me is going to make you experience your biggest regret. Even a tiny ant has the opportunity to bite an elephant to death. Of all things that you should not have done, you shouldn't have treated Li Yuran like this. This was the reason why Li Yuran had changed his mind. So they've abandoned you. Poor disposable pawn. Jun Mo Xie laughed, finally understanding why Li Yuran was so cooperative today. He was expecting to have to do some convincing with his fists. They have likely gathered together again to assemble their strongest forces so they can respond to any sudden changes. Now is definitely not the best time to seek revenge. Although you may be capable of defeating the enemy, but the loss on your side will also be considerable. Li Yuran ignored Jun Mo Xie, who was rejoicing in their misfortune, and continued. The best solution is to annihilate them by parts. If you suddenly reveal yourself, you'll instantly become their target. They'll definitely prepare themselves to handle you, and they'll most likely use some underhanded and despicable methods to do so. For example, the method they used on Venerable Mei, I believe it will be just as effective when used to defeat you. You can't guard against it. So in this duration, you better create a false situation to let them think that you're still not in Tianxiang City, and make them feel wary so they will abolish the thought of going after your family. You'll need to properly think of a method. After that, lower their guard so that it'll be more convenient for you to take actions next time. A method? Jun Mo Xie frowned. There weren't a lot of suitable methods at this point in time. Li Yuran was right. If they used his family members to threaten him, it would indeed be a big problem. Jun Mo Xie suddenly had a thought of moving his family into Tianfa Forest in advance. Then he would not have to worry about anything else. But he had originally planned to move them immediately after he had gotten his revenge. But with the current situation, he needed to speed things up. The royal family of Tianxiang Empire, let's just destroy it first. Jun Mo Xie began to secretly plot in his head, thinking deeply. I thought of one. It should be suitable. This stratagem could possibly destroy the Holy Lands. A ruthless gleam flashed in Li Yuran's eyes. The 3 Holy Lands had 3 objectives for this operation: you, Venerable Mei, and your master. Now, Venerable Mei has already perished. Now, we're only left with. He hadn't finished his sentence when a hand tightened around his neck. Jun Mo Xie grabbed him so tightly that he couldn't breathe. He was met with a cold, murderous look in Jun Mo Xie's eyes. She has not perished. Remember it. The next time you use perished when describing her, I will kill you. Jun Mo Xie let go of Li Yuran after he had finished the sentence. Li Yuran fell back onto his seat, holding his throat as he coughed a couple of times. As expected, Mei Shuayan was Jun Mo Xie's real soft spot. Or rather, his family was his soft spot. It was a slip of the tongue. The 3 Holy Lands temporarily only have you and your master as their objectives right now. Li Yuran did not get angry, continuing after catching a couple of breaths. Because he found Jun Mo Xie's bottom line, which was worth being choked for a while. You can let news out that to seek revenge for Venerable Mei, you are going to go and look for your master, then return for revenge. And you need to make it sound like your master is slightly far away from Tianxiang. This way, both sides will have more time to mediate. And this period of time is your time. Li Yuran looked at Jun Mo Xie and said indifferently. This is not only a stratagem. It is also a method to turn the situation around. With your current capabilities, although you are already very strong, you still have no chance of winning facing the remaining 6 saints at the same time. 1 saint alone is enough to wipe out the entire Jun family. But the greatest objective of the 3 Holy Lands is entirely that master of yours. And the key to your revenge is also your master. You cannot not make good use of this circumstances that is bestowed by heaven. The greatest hope of your revenge lies in making good use this circumstance. Li Yuran said. Make it difficult to tell what is true or false. This way, I believe that the saints from 3 holy lands will put all their efforts in preparing to battle with your master. And they will assume that all their objectives have been achieved the moment you and your master return. This way, they'll stop going after the Jun family. After all, they have statuses of a saint. To constantly go after a family from the regular society is truly not pleasant. The objective of the 3 holy lands is you only. They won't even bother to take a look at the Jun family if you are not part of it. This may sound rude, but it is definitely the truth. There's no harm taking it into consideration. Jun Mo Xie frowned as he pondered over the stratagem Li Yuran had provided. He had to admit that he was greatly enlightened by this advice from Li Yuran, someone who schemed so much it had become a habit. Li Yuran was truly worthy of the title of an expert plotter. Truly vicious and merciless. And this stratagem could be said to have taken everything into consideration. Even the minor worries Jun Mo Xie had initially were erased. I will carefully think over this stratagem. You've given me a plot, so I shall return you with one. During this period of time, you can help the second prince. Let him kill the first prince and third prince. And also get rid of that imperial father of his. You've been staying at his place for such a long time, and I believe you're embarrassed to be living here for free. You should give something back. It's not very good to always be freeloading. Jun Mo Xie had suddenly changed the topic entirely to something completely unrelated. He grinned at Li Yuran, cold and merciless. So this is where your real revenge lies. Li Yuran caught on instantly, his eyes widening in surprise for the first time. Make him watch his own flesh and blood kill each other? And with the help of someone else. Truly brilliant. This is the plot you have come up with to seek vengeance for your father? Li Yuran. As expected. You're truly clever. You even understood the little details within this plot. How is it? This stratagem I've given you isn't too shabby, is it? Jun Mo Xie raised his brows. Shabby? It's marvelous. Li Yuran laughed coldly. I am willing to offer my help in such a brilliant plot. Just notify me once everything on your side is ready. I am really looking forward to this exciting tragedy of kinship now. I will be really happy like this. Even though I can't become emperor, if the royal family perishes because of me, it will still be good. You are a little sick in the head. Jun Mo Xie took a look at him. I'm leaving. And thanks. Jun Mo Xie left with a turn of his body. There was no expression on his face, but his last word was of utmost importance to Li Yuran. And this word was what Li Yuran had always wanted. Thanks. Just this extremely simple word. Thanks. That was also what I wanted to say to you. Li Yuran stood alone in the room, a smile on his lips. Li Yuran, to think that I've developed this poor habit from scheming and plotting behind the scenes for such a long time. Is constantly strategizing for others my true purpose in life? The night passed by silently. Jun Mo Xie appeared in another location. The second Prince Yang Dan had chased a few concubines out of his own frustration. Not because his lecherousness had been treated, but he truly was not in the mood for anything. Furthermore, the people from 3 holy lands had suddenly left, causing this second prince to lose his mainstay. Even though Li Yuran was still around, but what good could his presence do? But at this moment, Jun Mo Xie appeared before him. Out of nowhere like a ghost. By the time the second prince realized it, Jun Mo Xie had already leisurely taken 2 steps in his room. The windows and doors were completely closed. How did he come in? Was he a human or a ghost? The second prince was frightened by Jun Mo Xie's arrival. He had just opened his mouth to scream, but it was already covered by Jun Mo Xie's palm. His entire body trembled, and there was a fearful look in his eyes. Stop shouting. It is useless even if you shout. I have brought good news for you this time. Jun Mo Xie said gently. Be good. Don't need to be afraid. I won't hurt you. Besides, since I am already here, it is useless even if you tear your throat from screaming, you should just listen obediently instead. Please subscribe to this channel so that we are more enthusiastic in providing the best video for you. Chapter 770. I'll send you to the top. After making these slightly contradicting remarks, young Master Jun released his hand and slowly cleaned it on the robes of the second prince. Jun. Jun. Mo Xie. What do you want? The second prince backed away in fear, his teeth chattering. Although he was terrified, but he was also well aware that there was no point in shouting. With Jun Mo Xie's legendary capabilities, killing him would be as easy as killing an ant. Stop backing away. I'll really kill you if you back away some more. Jun Mo Xie said as he smiled. Yes. That's a good boy. Let me ask you, Goat Testicle 1, are you willing to become the emperor? What do you mean? Yang Dan looked at him in fear, but a glimpse of unconcealable desire flashed across his eyes when he heard the words, become the emperor. As long as you do a couple of things, I will let you sit onto the emperor's throne. Jun Mo Xie said with a hypnotizing tone. I definitely will not go back on my word. Soul sedating technique. A very weak spiritual sense was used to stir up the greatest ambitions in the heart of the second prince. But why was the second prince's spiritual sense so weak? It was due to the extreme anxiety and fear he had experienced. How could he be resistant to Jun Mo Xie's soul sedating technique that could even hypnotize venerables? What is it? Speak. There is nothing I am incapable of doing. As long as you can promise that I'll sit upon the throne, I will do it. Anything. The fear in the eyes of the second prince slowly faded away and was replaced by a look of fiery ambition. The mention of Emperor's throne had made his heart, which had been yearning for 30 years, to be overwhelmed with crazy passion. Jun Mo Xie didn't even need to further hypnotize him. The second prince had gotten all stimulated on his own, agreeing to everything and promising mindlessly. So lousy. Even I didn't expect you to be so lousy. Jun Mo Xie scolded in his head. As a prince, to disgrace his body to this state, Yang Dan could be said to be the first and last in all of history. Had it not been because he was still in his peak of masculinity, he would probably have died from excessive ejaculation. Actually, I'm only providing you the simplest way. As long as you kill Yang Qiu and Yang Zhe, then kill Yang Huayu with your own hands, I can assure that you definitely will sit on that throne. Rid all the heirs in the royal family of Tianxiang, and only you will remain. Did you not think of such a simple method? Jun Mo Xie said in a low voice, his tone full of temptation. Ah! The second prince froze. Since ancient times, men of great ambition never bothered about trifles. Which emperor was not merciless and ruthless? If you can't even bear that, or even dare to kill your own competitors, how could you become the one and only supreme emperor? Jun Mo Xie leaned in beside Yang Dan's ear and said slowly. And Yang Qiu, Yang Zhe, And Yang Huayu are all your competitors. Your archenemies. Hindrances in your path to become emperor. They are no longer your father and brothers. You need to understand this. If they don't die, you will. And you will never be able to rise onto that throne. Only with my support will there be no obstacles before you. If there is only you left, then logically you will be the one that shall succeed the emperor's throne. Now that the 3 holy lands have left, only I can help you. Jun Mo Xie said slowly. He used a magical kind of spiritual sense in his words, causing them to resonate in the deepest parts of the second prince's soul. Slowly, echoing in his heart and mind and eventually his entire being. If I don't kill them, I will really have no hope. And I may even die. As long as I kill them, I will the emperor. They are my opponents. Enemies. How could I show mercy to my enemies? Imperial Father. Yang Huayu, you have been emperor for so many years already. Are you still not satisfied? Why must you still occupy that seat? You should just come down earlier. Elder brother. Yang Qiu, did you think that just because you're the oldest, the throne was definitely yours? Earlier, when father made you crown prince, you were elated, weren't you? It was something that was rightfully yours, wasn't it? You were only born a couple of years before me, that's all. If emperors were decided on their age, then only turtles would have the right to become emperor. They can live for 10,000 of years. Third brother. Yang Zhe. Who do you think you are? Even you dare to think of succeeding the throne? Did you think that because you are the youngest, Imperial Father would dote on you, and everyone will give in to you? Hey! Are you even worthy of being the emperor? Slowly, the second prince's emotions were greatly agitated. He suddenly made a turn, walked over to the table, picked up the teacup on the table and smashed it into smithereens onto the floor. Then, he flipped the entire table and began to hammer his chest. His entire face turned red and he shouted into the sky. Feck! Motherfecker! Yang Dan had finally been triggered thoroughly by Jun Mo Xie from inside out to the point he had completely exploded. He panted heavily as he came before Jun Mo Xie. Third young Master Jun. Do you mean what you said? You are really willing to support me? As long as you do it, I'll send you to the top. Jun Mo Xie nodded his head firmly. I will not go back on my word. Good. The second prince kicked at the table which tumbled away and hollered. Then I shall kill those 3 bastards. As long as I have third young master's support. What could I be incapable of? The current second prince was so passionate that he didn't realize that those few bastards were his own father and brothers, and he was the son of one of the bastards, a younger brother to another bastard and a bastard's older brother. Who knew if he counted as a bastard as well? Yes. We must kill those 3 bastards. Jun Mo Xie clapped as he looked at that unlucky table. Who knew if it was because the table was too sturdy or was the second prince too weak? It was still intact after being tossed about like this. Even if an ordinary person who had never practiced Xian Qi tossed and kicked the table about, it would probably have already broken into pieces. But who knew whether if the second prince was angered or exhausted, to be panting so heavily like this? It seemed like he had only broken a teacup. Jun Mo Xie was a little impressed that a man's strength was this weak. But I do not have capabilities. Not the slightest bit of it. Boo-hoo. The second prince had vented so much that he was dog-tired. But he suddenly squatted on the floor and began to wail sorrowfully, like a child. Good boy. It will be all right. With me supporting in the shadows, you shall have capabilities. Li Yuran will also aid you. You must remember you have to listen to Li Yuran. You must do whatever he asks you to do. Got that? As long as everything is done, you can attain the emperor's throne. Jun Mo Xie was about to hurl from the disdain he felt towards him, but he had to try to gently comfort him. Of course, these few sentences were also conveyed through spiritual sense. Really? The second prince chirped. For real? Jun Mo Xie nodded. I will definitely kill them. Those who stand in my way to becoming emperor shall die. The second prince Yang Dan said with resolution, clenching his fist as he swore. Jun Mo Xie laughed condescendingly before vanishing without a trace. The second prince immediately hurried over to Li Yuran. Jun Mo Xie had said so just now. As long as I obey Li Yuran, Li Yuran will help me succeed the throne. Li Yuran was bewildered. He was really surprised. To think that Jun Mo Xie was so fast in his actions. He left my place less than an hour ago, yet this second prince has already rushed over. And with such vehemence in the way he talked about the emperor and the other two princes, in a tone as if they could not exist under the same sky. As if those three people enemies who had murdered his father and ped his wife. After listening for a while, Li Yuran finally understood as he looked at the second prince, who seemed extremely smug with himself. Li Yuran couldn't help but feel a sense of sorrow for him. Jun Mo Xie has indeed promised to let you sit onto the emperor's throne, but he only said to let you sit on it, and not become an emperor for your lifetime. There is a great distinction here. But you became deluded and got all agitated. Letting you sit on that throne for 1 second can also be counted as having fulfilled his promise. Truly the number one idiot in all of history. As a human, to live as pathetically as you is truly tragic. I really can't figure out how did Jun Mo Xie do it. To sway this second prince into this state with a couple of sentences. Talent. An incredible talent. Although Li Yuran thought this way, he was extremely cooperative. Now under Jun Mo Xie's influence, he had a silly master who completely obeyed him. His crafty plots and machinations could finally be put into use openly. Although it is not me becoming emperor, but to aid this puppet into becoming emperor is also something that gives a great sense of achievement. Although it is only becoming emperor for only a short moment. Jun Mo Xie had returned back to the Jun residence. Jun Mo Xie called for Hai Chen Feng and only passed a single sentence. Tell Prince Equivalent and Yang Mo to get prepared. Hai Chen Feng left with his orders. The next day, Jun Mo Xie boarded a horse and left the north gates as swift as lightning without stopping. After a few hundred li of road, he abandoned his horse by the side of the road and disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, the Jun family had also vaguely released some news. This time, Jun Mo Xie was completely infuriated and enraged and had already set off to find his master, ready to come back to seek revenge at any time. And it seemed like young Master Jun's master stayed at a very faraway place. The trip would be a rough one, without stopping to rest. There may be a long delay during this period of time. But this revenge had to be taken. It was said that Jun Mo Xie said this when making an oath in the Jun family ancestral hall. There would be no waves without any wind. There had been quite a number of people lurking in the shadows of the Jun residence these couple of days to try to hear some news. When such shocking news came out, within seconds, everyone knew of it. But the Jun family seemed to have passed a gag order. No one was to discuss this news. If anyone managed to stop the servants of the Jun family to ask, they would be met with a look of surprise and suspicion, as well as the question, "How did you find out?" Thus, This news began to spread around in Tianxiang City, secretly. The news spread like wildfire. The saints from the three holy lands smirked at each other in a hidden place that we've finally succeeded. The ultimate goal can finally be achieved. Jun Mo Xie has left to invite his master. This story will be continued to chapter 771. For those of you who are not subscribed yet, please subscribe. The interesting and best stories will be updated. See you again in the next episode.